Imagine being the child of one of history's most iconic figures, yet fading into obscurity. Today, we'll uncover the untold story of Gershom and Eliezer, Moses' sons, whose quiet legacy challenges everything we think we know about purpose and greatness. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you might just find a surprising reflection of yourself in their story. The sons of Moses, Gershom and Eliezer, remain among the most enigmatic figures in biblical history. Born during Moses' exile in Midian, they symbolize pivotal moments in his life, from despair to deliverance. Gershom, meaning foreigner, reflects Moses' profound feelings of alienation after fleeing Egypt, a prince turned fugitive, displaced among a people who were not his own. Eliezer, meaning God is my help, serves as a testament to God's protection during Moses' perilous journey. Their lives unfolded against the backdrop of Moses' own transformation from a broken man tending sheep in the wilderness to a prophet chosen to lead an entire nation. Despite their proximity to greatness, Gershom and Eliezer faded into historical obscurity, their story serving as a reminder that not all roles in God's plan are meant to be in the spotlight. After a moment of rage led to the death of an Egyptian taskmaster, Moses fled the life he had known as a prince of Egypt. Alone and hunted, he wandered into the wilderness of Midian. There, he encountered Jethro, a priest, and his family, including his daughter Zipporah. This meeting was no mere coincidence. It was a pivotal moment orchestrated by God. Moses found a home among the Midianites, marrying Zipporah and beginning a new chapter in his life as a humble shepherd. It was during this time that Gershom was born. As Moses held his firstborn son, the joy of new life was tempered by a lingering sense of loss and alienation, a life far removed from the grandeur of Egypt. Gershom's name served as a constant reminder of Moses' exile, a foreigner in a foreign land. Yet, in this season of obscurity, Moses was being prepared for a greater calling. His life in Midian was not just a refuge, but a crucible, shaping him into the man who would later confront Pharaoh and lead God's people to freedom. Years passed, and Moses' life in Midian settled into a quiet rhythm. Yet, God's plans for Moses would not allow him to remain hidden. While tending Jethro's sheep near Mount Horeb, Moses encountered an extraordinary sight, a bush engulfed in flames yet unconsumed. Approaching out of curiosity, Moses was confronted by the voice of God, calling him to return to Egypt and deliver the Israelites from bondage. The encounter was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. Moses, overwhelmed by the enormity of the task, hesitated, questioning his ability and worthiness. God reassured him, promising to be with him and to work through him. This moment marked the turning point in Moses' life, transforming him from a fugitive shepherd into a prophet and leader of Israel. Gershom and Eliezer, though unaware of the divine mission unfolding before them, would soon be drawn into the narrative, accompanying their father on a journey that would alter the course of history. With the weight of his divine calling pressing upon him, Moses prepared to leave Midian. He gathered his family Zipporah, Gershom, and Eliezer, and began the arduous journey back to Egypt. This was no ordinary family trip. It was a mission fraught with uncertainty and danger. The young boys, riding on a donkey alongside their mother, were blissfully unaware of the peril that awaited their father in Pharaoh's court. Moses carried the staff of God, a symbol of divine authority, though his heart was heavy with doubts and fears. The journey was a physical and spiritual trial, a test of faith for Moses and his family. Along the way, Gershom and Eliezer would become silent witnesses to the unfolding of God's plan, their presence a reminder of Moses' dual responsibilities as a prophet and a father. On the way to Egypt, a mysterious and harrowing event occurred at a lodging place. God confronted Moses, and his life was in danger because he had neglected the covenant of circumcision for his son, Gershom. In a moment of urgency and deep spiritual insight, Zipporah took a flint knife and circumcised Gershom, touching Moses' feet with the blood. Her act not only saved Moses, but reestablished the family's alignment with God's covenant. This dramatic episode underscores the seriousness of God's commands and the vital role of Moses' family in supporting his divine mission. Zipporah's swift action was an act of courage and faith, ensuring that Moses could continue his journey to confront Pharaoh and lead the Israelites to freedom. Moses, armed with divine authority, stood before Pharaoh, demanding the release of the Israelites. The grandeur of the Egyptian court was a stark contrast to Moses' humble appearance. Gershom and Eliezer, likely kept at a distance from the proceedings, grew up witnessing their father's courage as he challenged the mightiest ruler on earth. Each plague that followed was a testament to God's power, yet Pharaoh's heart remained hardened. For Gershom and Eliezer, this was a pivotal moment that shaped their understanding of faith, justice, and the cost of obedience to God's will. Though silent in the narrative, their presence adds a human layer to Moses' immense responsibility as a leader and father navigating divine demands. The night of the Passover was unlike any other, as the angel of death passed over Egypt, sparing only those who marked their doors with lamb's blood. Moses and his family prepared to leave in haste. Gershom and Eliezer, too young to fully grasp the enormity of the moment, clung to their mother as chaos erupted around them. When Pharaoh finally released the Israelites, Moses led them out of Egypt, staff in hand, through the miraculous parting of the Red Sea. Gershom and Eliezer, walking amidst walls of water, became witnesses to one of the most extraordinary events in human history. The wilderness journey was grueling, a test of faith and endurance. As Moses led the Israelites, Gershom and Eliezer grew up in the shadow of their father's leadership, witnessing miracles such as manna from heaven and water flowing from a rock. Yet, their lives remained quiet and unassuming, far removed from the spotlight. They saw their father's struggles with the burden of leadership, his moments of frustration, and his unwavering reliance on God. These years forged their character, teaching them humility and the importance of service without recognition. While Moses ascended Mount Sinai to receive the law, Gershom and Eliezer remained in the camp, watching as the mountain trembled with smoke and fire. This was a defining moment for the Israelites, but for Gershom and Eliezer, it was also deeply personal. Their father was not just a prophet, he was the mediator between God and his people. Yet, even as they witnessed these awe-inspiring events, they did not seek the same prominence as their father, content instead to serve in their own quiet way. As the years passed, Gershom and Eliezer's lives faded into the background of the biblical narrative. They did not inherit leadership roles or prominence as Aaron's descendants did, but they remained faithful to their responsibilities within the Levitical tribe. Their descendants continued to serve in the tabernacle, maintaining the worship and spiritual life of Israel. This quiet legacy is a reminder that not all contributions to God's work are visible, but all are valuable. Gershom and Eliezer's story speaks to the enduring impact of faithfulness and humility in God's greater plan. The separation of Moses' family during the Exodus is one of the quieter moments in the narrative, yet it carries significant emotional weight. At some point after leaving Egypt, Zipporah and her sons appear to have returned to Midian. This decision, possibly for their safety, left Moses to shoulder his monumental mission without the comfort of his immediate family. Gershom and Eliezer, likely still young, would have faced the reality of being apart from their father during a defining period in Israelite history. The reunion at Mount Sinai, when Jethro brought Zipporah and the boys back to Moses, was bittersweet, a moment of familial joy shadowed by the enormity of Moses' divine responsibilities. For Gershom and Eliezer, it was a rare instance of their father balancing his role as leader with his role as a parent. After the Israelites reached the Promised Land, the legacy of Gershom and Eliezer shifted to their descendants. Unlike Aaron's sons, who were tasked with high-profile priestly duties, Gershom and Eliezer's lineage served in quieter, supportive roles within the Levitical tribe. They were responsible for maintaining the tabernacle, transporting sacred objects, and assisting in worship rituals. Though their names seldom appear in the Bible, their contributions were essential to the spiritual life of Israel. This distinction reminds us that God's plan values every role, whether seen or unseen. and that the work done behind the scenes is often as vital as the work in the spotlight. The lives of Gershom and Eliezer, though quiet and seemingly unremarkable, are deeply instructive. They teach us that God's plans for individuals vary, and that not everyone is called to be a leader or a prophet. Gershom and Eliezer's faithfulness in their roles demonstrates the importance of humility and service. They remind us that impact is not measured by recognition, but by obedience to God's purpose. Their legacy is a testament to the idea that even the most hidden lives can have profound significance in God's greater story. For those who feel overlooked or unimportant, Gershom and Eliezer's story offers reassurance that every role in God's kingdom has eternal value. The Bible provides glimpses of Gershom and Eliezer's descendants, particularly in genealogies and chronicles. Gershom's line, through Shubal, also spelled Shebuel, is mentioned among the Levites tasked with administrative and spiritual duties. Eliezer's lineage, through his son Rehabiah, is noted for its growth and prominence among the Levites. The numerous descendants of Rehabiah suggest a blessing of fruitfulness and continuity, even without the elevated status of priesthood. These genealogical records, though brief, highlight the enduring impact of Gershom and Eliezer's quiet faithfulness. Their legacy, though not as celebrated as others, played a crucial role in maintaining the spiritual life of Israel across generations. Though the names of Gershom and Eliezer are not celebrated in the same way as other biblical figures, their story resonates with enduring truths about purpose, service, and legacy. They remind us that God's plans often transcend human expectations of greatness. The quiet roles they and their descendants played were vital in the spiritual framework of Israel, maintaining the worship practices that sustain the nation. Their lives challenge modern readers to find joy and purpose in the unseen, trusting that God values every contribution to His kingdom. In their humility and faithfulness, Gershom and Eliezer's legacy speaks to the power of serving God without seeking recognition. Here's a thought. If you were Gershom or Eliezer, living in the shadow of a figure like Moses, how would you find your purpose? Would you step into the spotlight or embrace a quieter role? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. There's no wrong answer, only perspectives. Gershom and Eliezer's story highlights a powerful truth. Not everyone is called to prominence, but everyone is called to purpose. Their lives served as a foundation for the Levite lineage, a tribe dedicated to serving God. Unlike their uncle Aaron's descendants, who held priestly roles and carried significant public responsibilities, Gershom and Eliezer worked quietly in the background, their contributions shaping Israel's spiritual infrastructure. They served without seeking fame or glory, embodying the principle that true faithfulness often involves humility and service without recognition. In a world that often glorifies visibility, their legacy challenges us to see value in roles that may seem ordinary but are vital to God's overarching plan. Shubal, Gershom's descendant, emerges as a key figure among the Levites. Chronicles describe him as a leader responsible for overseeing temple finances and administration. This role, though less visible than the priests, was critical for the functioning of Israel's worship system. Shubal's leadership illustrates how Gershom's lineage continued to serve faithfully, ensuring the smooth operation of the tabernacle and later the temple. Gershom's quiet dedication bore fruit in a lineage that contributed to the spiritual and practical aspects of worship, demonstrating the long-term impact of a life lived in obedience to God's calling. Eliezer's descendants, particularly through his son Rehabiah, are noted for their remarkable growth. Chronicles describes Rehabiah's line as very numerous, a detail that stands out among other genealogies. This proliferation is seen as a blessing, aligning with God's promises of fruitfulness to His people. While they didn't hold the priestly roles of Aaron's line, Eliezer's descendants likely played integral roles in supporting the Levite duties, including maintenance of sacred spaces, transportation of holy objects, and guarding the tabernacle. Their story speaks to the generational blessings that come from faithfulness, with their numbers symbolizing strength, continuity, and God's provision. While Gershom's line didn't inherit priestly roles, they played vital parts in the worship practices of Israel. As Levites, they were tasked with responsibilities like caring for the tabernacle's furnishings, assisting in sacrifices, and maintaining the sacred spaces. These duties required a deep understanding of God's commands and a commitment to their execution. Gershom's descendants exemplified the quiet but crucial work of supporting the visible leaders, demonstrating that worship involves the entire community. Their faithfulness ensured that the Israelites could worship God in a way that honored His instructions, reinforcing the importance of every role in His plan. Gershom and Eliezer's story is one of faithfulness in obscurity. They remind us that God's kingdom operates through both the visible and the unseen, the celebrated and the humble. Their lives challenge the modern emphasis on recognition, encouraging us to embrace roles that may not receive applause but are integral to God's work. The impact of their faithfulness extended across generations, shaping the Levite tribe's contribution to Israel's worship. Their legacy calls us to trust in God's purpose for our lives, even when it doesn't align with human definitions of success. They teach us that true greatness lies in obedience, humility, and the willingness to serve where God places us. The silence surrounding Gershom and Eliezer in the broader biblical narrative raises thought-provoking questions. Why were the sons of Moses, arguably the greatest prophet in Israel's history, not prominently featured in Scripture? This omission reflects a deliberate focus on God's sovereignty and the uniqueness of His plans. Moses' leadership and prophetic role were not passed on to his sons, emphasizing that divine callings are not inherited but uniquely assigned. Gershom and Eliezer's absence from the spotlight also serves as a contrast to the prominence of Aaron's sons, reinforcing the idea that God chooses leaders not based on lineage but purpose. Their quiet existence underscores the principle that service to God is not about visibility but faithfulness, a lesson as relevant today as it was then. A pivotal theme in Gershom and Eliezer's story is the separation of roles between Moses and Aaron's lineages. While Aaron's descendants were designated for the priesthood, Gershom and Eliezer's roles remained within the broader Levitical duties. This distinction was intentional, preventing confusion about spiritual leadership among the Israelites. God's design placed Moses in a unique prophetic role that was not transferable to his sons. Instead, Gershom and Eliezer's legacy was to support the infrastructure of worship and community life. This separation of responsibilities ensured clarity in leadership and demonstrated God's careful orchestration of His plans. Gershom and Eliezer's descendants carried forward the values of obedience and service that defined their lives. As members of the Levite tribe, they fulfilled vital tasks in maintaining the tabernacle and later, the temple. These roles required precision and dedication, ensuring that worship was conducted according to God's commands. Generational obedience became a hallmark of their lineage, demonstrating the enduring impact of faithfulness. Their story reminds us that the legacy of a family is not measured by fame, but by the continuation of godly principles and service across generations. The prominence of Aaron's sons in the priesthood serves as a stark contrast to the relative obscurity of Gershom and Eliezer. Aaron's descendants held positions of visible authority, performing sacrifices and leading worship. In contrast, Gershom and Eliezer's lineage worked behind the scenes, maintaining the infrastructure that made these ceremonies possible. This contrast illustrates a broader biblical principle that different roles in God's plan carry equal value, even if they are not equally visible. The priesthood of Aaron's line was essential, but it could not function without the foundational support of the Levites, including Gershom and Eliezer's descendants. Gershom and Eliezer's lives teach us that God's purposes often unfold in hidden and unexpected ways. Their quiet service and the faithfulness of their descendants contributed to the spiritual foundation of Israel. Their story encourages us to embrace our roles, whether prominent or hidden, with humility and dedication. It reminds us that God values faithfulness over recognition, and that even the most unnoticed acts of service have eternal significance. Their legacy speaks to the power of generational faithfulness, showing how one family's obedience can impact countless lives. In today's world, Where success is often equated with visibility, Gershom and Eliezer's story is a powerful reminder of the value of unseen work. Many people serve in ways that go unnoticed, raising families, mentoring others, or maintaining communities, but their contributions are no less significant in God's eyes. Gershom and Eliezer's lives encourage us to find purpose and fulfillment in serving God faithfully, regardless of recognition. They inspire us to trust that God sees and honors every act of obedience, and that our impact often extends beyond what we can see. While Moses received the commandments and instructions for the tabernacle on Mount Sinai, Gershom and Eliezer likely observed their father's leadership with awe and reverence. Though their names are not explicitly tied to the physical construction of the tabernacle, as Levites, their descendants carried on the critical work of maintaining Israel's worship practices. This legacy ties Gershom and Eliezer to the establishment of sacred traditions that defined the Israelites' relationship with God. Their family became part of the heartbeat of Israel's worship, showing that their quiet contributions resonated throughout history. Gershom's lineage, though not priests, played essential roles in supporting the sacrificial system. They ensured that the temple's daily functions were executed smoothly, maintaining order in the sacred spaces. This included cleaning, preparing offerings, and transporting ritual items. These tasks, while not visible to the congregation, were indispensable to the integrity of worship. Gershom's descendants exemplified humility, showing that every act of service, no matter how small, is vital when performed for God's glory. The descendants of Eliezer, particularly through Rehabiah, multiplied significantly, fulfilling God's promise of fruitfulness. Their growth symbolized divine blessing, reinforcing the importance of generational obedience. Each generation carried forward the values of humility, service, and reverence for God's commands. This abundance not only reflected material blessings, but also the spiritual strength of a family committed to God's work. Rehabiah's numerous descendants ensured that the Levites' responsibilities were upheld, sustaining Israel's worship across generations. Gershom and Eliezer's lives may not have been marked by dramatic moments or celebrated achievements, but their legacy is deeply woven into the fabric of Israel's history. Their quiet endurance reflects a profound faith that does not rely on recognition or glory. Through their descendants, Gershom and Eliezer's story became one of perseverance, illustrating how ordinary lives, when dedicated to God, can have extraordinary impacts. They serve as examples of how faithfulness in unseen roles contributes to the greater good, embodying the principle that God's purpose often operates quietly but powerfully. Gershom and Eliezer's lives teach us that impact isn't measured by recognition, but by faithfulness to your purpose. If their story resonates with you, share this video with someone who might need that reminder today. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories that uncover the hidden lessons in history